They lived on the cusp of two centuries, the 19th and the 20th. The hearts of millions, along with Charlie Chaplin and Mary Pickford. But today, few people have heard of the Sutherland sisters. What made the Seven Sisters so famous? Why were the Sutherland sisters called the Seven Wonders of America? Why was long, luxurious hair so essential to the Victorian era? And why were they a challenge to morality? How were the sisters able to earn a fortune? Why were they unhappy in their personal lives, and why did they end up so ignominiously squandering large sums of money? There were seven of them: Sarah, Victoria, Isabella, Grace, Naomi, Mary, and Dora. Together with an only brother, they were born into a poor farmer's family near New York City between 1851 and 1865. Their mother was well aware that she could marry off her daughters without a devoted one if they were well brought up and uneducated. So all the girls were not only literate but also beautifully sung and played musical instruments, and their chief treasure was their hair, the total length of which exceeded 11 meters. The eldest sister, Sarah's hair was the shortest at only 90 centimeters, and Victoria's was almost 2 meters long. Their mother forbade them to cut their hair. Note, hair was among the main assets of Victorian women. Following in the list of the bride's virtues almost immediately after virginity and the size of the betrayed, jewelry and lace cost money and were not available to everyone. But luxurious hair was inherited by some beauties from birth, regardless of wealth and position in society. When the elder Sutherland sisters reached an age suitable for marriage, their mother began to organize musical evenings in the house at which the sisters performed church music and old ballads. Except that the guests were not at all interested. They were attracted by the sisters' luxurious hair. To make sure that this hair touched the floor, the sisters held themselves in different ways. Some sat, some kneeled, and some stood at full height. This phenomenon gave the audience an almost perverse pleasure. In the chaste Victorian era, no decent woman would have ever dared to appear in public like this. A woman with loose hair could only be seen by her husband. The fame of the Seven Sisters quickly spread everywhere. In 1882, they received an offer to join a circus troupe called The Greatest Show on Earth, Barnum and Bailey. At the time, the sisters were 18 years the youngest and 31 the oldest. In the 19th century, freak shows, then culturally referred to as oddball shows or human peculiarity shows, became fashionable. And among bearded women, Siamese twins, dwarfs, mermaids and others, 7 beautiful women appeared. Their success exceeded all expectations. The press has dubbed them the Seven Wonders of America. They became a symbol of womanhood. The sisters made more money performing than the entire circus troupe. Their popularity grew. However, after a triumphant tour of Florida, Alabama, New Orleans and Atlanta, interest in circus performances noticeably waned. The country was going through a crisis and many were not to the spectacle, but a woman is always a woman and her desire to have a slender figure, a row of snow-white teeth and gorgeous hair, eternal. And the girl's father, Fletcher Sutherland, made the next move to enrich the family. He patented his own trademark and began selling the Sutherland sisters' Seven Sisters tonic. Miracle remedy, which his wife allegedly daily rubbed on the hair of his daughters, thanks to which they have reached such an incredible length. Modern scientists have even studied the composition of this tonic and found nothing special in it. It included salt, quinine, witch hazel, bay rum, glycerin, rosewater, alcohol and soap. Common for those times of remedies. A bottle of such an elixir cost from 50 cents to $1.50, which in the 19th century was equal to a day's or even a week's middle-class salary. The sisters no longer had the need to perform in the freak circus. They sold autographed photos of themselves and postcards with their own images. Fans tried to buy at least a lock of these women's hair for good luck. In addition to selling products in regular stores, the girls personally promoted hair products from their own salons, including in New York City. The tonic quickly became a bestseller, and the Sutherland sisters line of hair products expanded to include scalp cleansers, brushes, and hair care. In the 19th century wasn't easy. Hair care wasn't about washing it, it was about growing it out and styling it carefully. The Victorian era did not encourage nudity, so it was recommended to undress as little as possible. To maintain body hygiene, it was customary to wipe with damp towels and herbal infusions rather than wash. Hair was only lightly rinsed with water, with a teaspoon of ammonia. Washing the head and body in the full sense of the word was recommended, not more than once a month, and shampoo was invented only in 1903, and in everyday life came even later, so the hair was washed with the same soap, which was used to wash laundry and wash hands. Well, the main ritual in hair care was combing it twice a day. So also long-haired Austrian Empress Elizabeth spent 3 hours daily combing her hair. And Victorian combs were quite different from today's combs. A comb was used to roll the hair. The comb, on the other hand, was made with stiff bristles and was used to cleanse the hair of styling products and impurities. That is, it acted like the dry shampoo of today. The head should look neat hair to hair. Hair styling oils and pomades were used liberally, and the formulations of these products could be quite bizarre. They included both the very traditional palm oil, castor oil, and the less obvious, candle wax, and even, don't fall down, beef brains. Anyway, now you can imagine how much time the Sutherland sisters spent caring for their luxurious hair. Well, since hair care products were few and far between, the Sutherland sisters line of products became so popular that in 1890, sales exceeded $3 million. The family became fabulously rich. In pursuit of wealth, the sisters spent their best years. But their personal life turned out extremely unsuccessful. After the death of his father, the sisters began to dispose of money on their own. Money was easy to get, but also easy and flowed through their fingers. They built a huge house with 14 rooms and a tower, where each sister had her own room with an adjoining marble bathroom. The house had running water from a faucet, a rarity in late 19th century America. Each sister had a maid. Guests often gathered at the house for dinners, performances, and evenings with fireworks. There were plenty of men seeking their favor, but no serious relationships. They were all profit seekers. It wasn't until 1885 that Naomi's fifth sister, who was 27, was the first sister of the sisters to marry. Her chosen one was Mr. Bailey, nephew of the owner of the greatest show on earth. Naomi died before she was 40. But the most amazing story happened to the third sister, Isabella. The charming adventurer Frederick Castlemaine courted Dora and then surprised everyone by marrying Isabella, who was 13 years older than him. As a result of this history, Castlemaine committed suicide. And his sisters laid him in a glass coffin on display in the music room until the police intervened and Castlemaine's body was laid to rest in the mausoleum. Rumor has it that Isabella visited his burial site every night until 2 years later when she married another adventurer, Alonso Wayne, who was 16 years younger than her. And 50-year-old Victoria walked down the aisle with a 19-year-old boy, which finally divided the sisters. Victoria was kicked out of their shared home. In general, only one girl of the Sutherland family managed not only to marry, but also to become a mother. The First World War broke out. While men were fighting at the front, yesterday's housewives replaced corsets with comfortable uniforms and went to work in factories and plants. And short haircuts became fashionable. Tonics and ointments for growing long hair were now unnecessary. The sisters' wealth dissipated like smoke, thanks to their unwise management of money. In 1920, 4 sisters died: Naomi, Victoria, Isabella, and Sarah. In 1926, the 3 survivors Grace, Dora, and Mary traveled to Hollywood hoping to sell their story. Their trip was unsuccessful and ended in tragedy. Dora was killed in a traffic accident. Grace and Mary didn't even have the money for her cremation. Mary suffered bouts of insanity. At times, she often locked herself up in her room. And later ended up in a mental hospital, where she died at 39. Grace followed her 7 years later. They were buried in unmarked graves. The last reminder of their former wealth, the turreted house, burned to the ground in 1938. If you've been interested, subscribe and don't forget to click on the bell notifications.